Okay, welcome everybody to our joint webcast today between Quest Software and Calance. My name is Candace Moore. I'm the Channel Marketing Manager for Quest. And I open up the presentation or webcast, with a couple of housekeeping items. Throughout the presentation today, if you have any questions that you would like answered by the presenters, please feel free to type those questions into the Q&A box at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We will address those questions at the end of the presentation. Please do feel free to type those in as they pop into your head throughout the presentation. So I just want to let you know that we will have a recording of today's presentation that will be emailed to you within 24 to 48 hours of the webcast. Once again, thank you for joining us today, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to Natasha.
Yes, this is Natasha Samuels. I am with Calance and a director here for business development and delivery. And thank you all for joining us today for our co-hosted webinar. And I just want to give you a quick overview of Calance, give you a sense of what we can do for you, and then I'm going to hand it back to our friends at Quest, Brandon and Jamie. So Calance is an IT services firm. We provide a wide range of solutions and support to our clients. We do custom-built applications right through to out-of-the-box solutions, and we also provide, of course, managed services, which is where we jump in with Quest to manage case and endpoint support management. So we've been in user management for about 20 years now. Long before it was a term even used in the industry, and before there were actually tools out there. So we've seen a variety of tools developed, be invented, used, replaced, etc. We have found that CASE has actually been incredibly user-friendly, and response from our clients has been really good. So one of our clients has implemented this, and after we go through the presentation with Brandon and Jamie, I'm going to come back and talk to you a little bit about a case study, a CASE case study, not a case study, no pun intended there, but just walk you through some of what we found, our learnings, and our takeaways from using CASE and just from using a useful tool that really is applicable to your solutions and what you're looking for. So let me just move it forward here in our slides. Okay, as you can see, we've got a wide variety of services there and what we do. And our approach to doing systems management is obviously not rocket science. We help you assess what you're looking for. If that's what you need, we'll help you design it. We'll help you implement that solution and maintain it. What differentiates us from a lot of other competitors is that we will work with you. We're looking for the solution that's right for you, not the top-notch solution out there, but the right solution for you and your business, depending on what your goal is, what your strategy is, and whatever it is that you're trying to achieve by looking for that type of solution. So we'll come back and talk about that, as I said, when we look at that case study. But I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Brandon and let him talk to you a little bit about the overall full life cycle. Brandon.
Natasha. My name is Brandon Whitman. I'm the solution architect for CASE in the Texas-Oklahoma area. I also have with me Sarah, who is one of our sales engineers. And so we're going to take a little bit different approach than I get. We're not going to go into 45 minutes of a demo that you guys may not want to sit through. We're just going to keep everything real conversational, talking about things at a high level. So let's talk about the overall endpoint systems management cycle. Really the things you see there, provisioning, managing, service, securing endpoints, have really changed a lot over the years. You still deploy, we still image machines, we install applications, we keep them patched. It's all the same, but some other demands that are being put on IT departments and yourself and our customers are changing the ways that we have to do that. They're expected to lower the total cost of ownership, the endpoint, and that includes the management strategy of that. I'm going to talk about how CASE can help you guys get through that. Declaration management and other things that come in there, supporting the endpoint is another thing that is placed on IT staff shoulders. And these are all things that CASE can help with. You know enough, if you talk to anybody that has an ESM solution, one of the pieces mentioned in here is, you know, retirement of machines. And, you know, that's not really focused on a whole lot. Most people are more concerned about, you know, just keeping it alive during the life cycle. But retirement is definitely an important of that. We've got a Q&A box here as well, so feel free to ask questions in there, and Jamie and I will address those as those come in. We'll also have a Q&A session as well. You know, go ahead in the chat or in the Q&A box. If there's any part of that, you know, what part of those four things are most important in the environments that you're seeing, go ahead and put that in there, and we can kind of tailor our conversation that way. I kind of briefly covered those four main areas. You know, making an assumption that most people kind of have a basic understanding of that. You know, that's pretty high level. One would be, you know, Jamie, is there anything I left out? What is there any part of that life cycle that you think stands out as being more important that we roll down into?
Well, what I've seen, and I cover a lot of the federal groups, so we have sometimes some different, you know, things that we have to worry about with the different regulations and different, you know, mandates that are coming down from their upper levels. One of the things that we've seen a big push on recently, really kind of two main components. One would be the Windows 10 rollouts. There's a lot of things behind that, right? So it's not just pushing out an operating system. We're all used to that, you know, from XP, and probably even some of us old enough to remember, you know, that from Windows 3.1. But from taking that operating system, and there's a lot of things that are going to be wrapped around that. So no longer is it just let me push out an operating system and test a couple applications. There's a lot of hardware requirements that are going into this, and Windows 10 is only going to be supported as the only operating system on KB Lake, which is the newest Intel chipset, along with Qualcomm. They have their own newer chipsets that's only going to support Windows 10. So as you start thinking about system management, you're pulling new systems in because we're always going to be refreshing new boxes. You just stay on Windows 7 like we did with XP for as long as we did. They're cutting off support for that. So we have to kind of get out ahead of that. Make sure that our Windows 10 rolling out is going successfully, make sure we test all the applications and be prepared for that new hardware. The second piece that we see a lot of, especially in the federal space right now, is a very big focus on asset management, inventory management, and license compliance. So we see a lot of people working about, I need to verify the licenses that I have, what's installed, and be able to true up, because there's a lot of cost cutting going on these days, and they will kind of want to make sure that they're spending their money wisely. So those are two things that I see are trends right now, at least in the spaces that I'm working on.
You know, I want to talk a little bit more about both of those pieces, but first, you know, you kind of hit on a point there with license compliance and true-ups, and, you know, even in a worst case, an audit. You know, what can you do to that?
Yeah, there's a couple different things that we can mess around with in the case world. The first thing would be our agent inventory, right? So our agent's going to pull back inventory from Windows, Mac, and Linux devices, be able to get a really good hardware and software inventory. But on top of that, we have a software catalog that we maintain in the cloud, millions of executables, so that we not only look at your out-of-root programs, but we can actually see the executables on your drive and match them to known titles out there in our software catalog. So doing that, we can help normalize that data. So you might have 20 different versions of Outlook.exe installed because you have a service pack here and a service pack there, and that's not all consistent throughout your organization. It's licensed based on all those little service packs, but our software catalog has the ability to kind of normalize that data So it knows that if it's Office 2013, it doesn't matter what service pack or patch release we're on, it puts that into a family. So then we license against that family. It's very simple for you to just say, hey, I own 200 copies of Office. Let me attach it to that catalog item. And we spit out pre-canned reports or reports that their customers can customize and build themselves to give them exactly what they need. If they want to add extra things like when does my contract expire for that thing, or I need to renew the maintenance on that piece of software. Those types of things that we can add in to that software record to manage that software asset. You get notifications on that. So I want to be, sent an email. I want when my Microsoft stuff is coming up for true-up, or when I have to repurchase my Adobe professional licenses. So things that we can utilize the case asset database in conjunction with our inventory processes to help a customer manage effectively. Another thing that on top of that catalog is the ability to not only get the license information and figure out what's being, what's installed versus what you own, but we have the ability to track the usage of applications. So we can do an enable software mirroring usage statistics on applications that we care to look for usage statistics on. Not do it for things like Acrobat Reader, free stuff, but stuff that we're concerned with that we pay a lot of money for. We can enable those usage statistics, and that gives us the ability to say, hey, look, not only am I compliant on my licenses, but I've got 10 people over here that have this application that have never used it in the past 6 months. I have to go purchase new licenses for new people coming in. Maybe I can repurpose those licenses. So I think a few different things that Case can help with if you look at the big picture of not only counting the licenses and tracking those, but figuring out if they're actually being utilized.
Sounds really great that you can track, the expiration of, recurring licenses that have to be renewed. It also sounded like you could assign a dollar amount in there so you could see, what may do at up or, what you're at risk for during an audit. Other piece I picked up on there, and this is just the old IT guy in me, you can really tell somebody's experience in the IT industry by whether they call it programs and features or whether they call it add and remove programs. The old guys that have been in the trenches for a long time, Windows 10, they still call it add and remove programs, so I picked up on that. So mentioning Windows 10 there, other than, the hardware piece, that seems like a fairly easy piece to get on. If you're going to Windows 10, you're going to need new hardware. What some of the other struggles people may face in that Windows 10 migration?
Well, the thing on top of just the hardware requirements, and I think the thing to note is that, you look at the basic hardware requirements that we used to just look at, right? So we used to look at things like how fast the CPU was running, how much memory we had, and how much disk space was there. Now we have to worry about the chipset. So the Skylake chipset, which is kind of, I call it the intermediate chipset, because Skylake still has support for Windows 7 and Windows 8. And that's the current chipset that's shipping on most models today. But the KB Lake chipset, which is coming out, that has no backward support. And then the other component about Skylake is that they're stopping support. So they're only providing very limited support on Skylake chips, and even in manufacturer-wise, some models we supported. So they may not support all the Skylake chipset models, but maybe only a few different models for Windows 7 and Windows 8, so those older ones. So the chipset now we have to keep in mind. And the next thing we really have to be concerned with is the application compatibility. We've got folks that were within our group, an application called ChangeBase. And not something we're going to delve into too much today, but I want to let people know that it's out there. We have this tool that can actually run, look at your applications, figure out if there's going to be any incompatibilities moving from 7 to 8 to 10, and then I'll also help you address those incompatibilities. So we just want to start installing Windows 10 and then hope things are working. We have a lot of application compatibilities to test.
I mean, it sounds like we've got that covered. From an application standpoint with ChangeBase, sounds like Case has that. Now, what does that process look like? Is this manual? One of the big things driving endpoint management right now is automation. So we're well short in enterprise if they don't have some of these things automated.
You think you waste a lot of time, you waste a lot of resources, not only your IT staff, but the people that are trying to manage, right, their end users. So Case helps a lot with that automation process. And one of the things that we're also kind of trying to get our handle on, too, is upgrade versus reinstall. Traditionally, we see, like when back in 7 and 8, and even initially beginning at the deployment of Windows 8.1 and 10, I got kind of like the old mindset, right? Hey, it's a new operating system. It's so easier for me just to push out a brand new image, nice clean, and let it go. There's a lot less issues with it. Microsoft has made a lot of strides in their upgrade process and become a lot cleaner and a whole lot more reliable from what I've seen. Now the question becomes to upgrade versus reimage. Luckily, Case handles both of those equations. We can handle the pushing out of the upgrade file and initiating that upgrade path to start. We just say, hey, look, I'm going to reimage it. We can really back up profiles, make sure we keep the user data intact. So I think there's more paths these days that we have to consider. But I think that Case has those automation tools, which you decide to go.
Boy, you bring up a real sore spot for a lot of IT staff right there, user data. That make or break a successful migration. How does handle that?
The ability to, again, this is really more along the lines of the image type scenario, because once you're doing an upgrade, user data is going to persist and we don't have to worry about that. When we do that re-image scenario, which a lot of people are going to go continue that path, what do we do with it? We got to back it up. So Case has the ability to back up that user state during the imaging process, or we back it up while they're up in Windows, and we can schedule a task to say, hey, I want you to go back up that user profile, store it on the Case appliances or an external server if we need to. And then once we have that profile, go ahead and push out the image and then push out that profile right back to the device. We've also partnered with a company called Transition. I kind of call it Microsoft's USMT on steroids. It has a lot more full features than Microsoft built-in USMT, user state migration tools. So you can take from a Windows 7 32-bit system that's running Office 2010 and migrate all those settings over to a 64-bit Windows 10 running Office 2016. And it can take those settings and translate that where USMT can't. So again, that's stuff we can help automate with the Case solution. And again, we partner with that company. We even offer a free trial, I think, of up to 50 devices with any Case purchase, so you can kind of get a handle on how you're going to get that data from the machine to the new machine.
Okay, great. I mean, that really covers, the migration of new systems to Windows 10 and, even just the imaging of new systems as they come in. It's not anymore to get a system shelf or out of the box and with the OEM copy of Windows 10. They're not cutting it in enterprises these days. So, now that system image and is out in the environment,
So once the image is out there, the next question we really have to address is, what do we do, right? We want to keep it up to date. We want to make sure that we can push out new applications as we get new versions of our applications. Not only the operating system, but a lot of those third-party applications that we tend to work on. So like things like Adobe Reader and Java, Chrome, and Firefox. Stuff that very common applications that are pretty much ubiquitous today. We take control of those and patch those, as seamlessly as we can. Since we were part of Dell for quite a number of years, we also have some really nice hooks that can help you manage your warranty information and drivers and your BIOS updates. So we can schedule those automatic updates for drivers and BIOSes for your Dell systems, and a very, very seamless way to do that, and automatically grab your warranty information right from the Dell warehouse. So we always know what's in warranty, what's coming up on warranty. So that getting that inventory, getting an understanding of what you have, and also being able to manage that day-to-day, update it, make sure that it's up to date, your security holes are being plugged. That's really critical.
Really good point. One of the that came through the Q&A. Does transitions provide for movement of installed applications?
So no, they don't provide for the movement of the applications. What they really provide is movement of the settings for applications. And Microsoft has a very limited tool set with USMT. And transition just expands on that, right? So I can take custom things from Acrobat and Firefox and Chrome, and I mean, there's a huge list of applications that it can pull settings from, but it can actually move the application in and of itself. There's a lot of licensing questions and things that would arise if they actually move an application from one machine to another, because where does the license sit, and some things licensed based on the CPU is attached to. I know things AutoCAD are really particular about how they're licensed, even the Adobe suite as well. So I think that it provides you that path to get at least the data and the settings over, and then of course you just make sure you have your applications installed as part of the image or later in after the deployment.
Well, I just had one other thing come through the Q&A from my initial question a few minutes ago. Somebody said inventory, ... Tell me about Case's inventory.
Yeah, a few different ways that we're going to be gathering inventory. Primary resource for inventory is deploying an agent. For Windows systems, that's usually just a group policy, very simple to do. And then for Macs and Linux, we can print it from our appliance or run scripts. But essentially, we want to get our agent out there for those type of systems. That pulls back all sorts of data, right? Hardware data, software data. We can even customize that data. So if I want to run a query that pulls the serial number off the battery on a laptop, if that's not normally gathered by our normal inventory, I do that. All sorts of scripts we've seen, plenty of different applications from users. I've seen people run a script that pulls all the local administrators and dumps them into an inventory record so we know who the local admins are on the box. So that's probably the easiest part, right? Is just a traditional, let me deploy the agent and let your agent start talking back to me. On top of that, we can do other types of devices via agentless inventory. So things like routers and printers, switches, wireless access points. At home here, I've even got my Raspberry Pi hooked up to it, where I can pull an inventory off of a networked asset utilizing SNMP or Telnet or SSH, a number of different agentless type protocols that can be secured. So you can use SNMP v1, 2, or 3 for its own all sorts of encryption. So we can pull that information off into our inventory to make it more of a single pane of glass to look at everything. We also have two other kind of primary ways to get inventory in. One would be integration with Google's API for their Google Chromebook management. So you're not going to be able to manage a Chromebook. Google doesn't let anybody do that. So we can integrate and have our API work with them so they can pull all the devices from Chromebook management into the Case appliance. So you can now see that as part of the inventoried assets as well. The last piece would be at least a built-in integration with AirWatch. So if you have mobile devices that are managed using AirWatch's integration, we can have an API that talks to the AirWatch instance that you're using, pull those devices, and again, make that part of a single pane of glass to look at all your inventory.
There's some really good things in there. Sounds like you mentioned your Raspberry Pi. Sounds like that has some potential to be used with Internet of Things devices as those become more prevalent in the enterprise, especially and Chromebooks as well in education. Some big points there. Right. Chromebooks are just getting bigger and bigger. For a long time, it was iPads. iPads were everywhere in education. And then, the apps were lagging behind. Input methods were not as smooth or as quick as they needed to be, as having a low device to keep that endpoint cost low, and having a physical keyboard on it. That's where Chromebooks have really started to excel. So, that's a great overview of inventory, but, tell why inventory is so important.
Well, you look at businesses these days and what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to do more with less money. We have to be able to understand what we have, and if we need to repurpose it, reassign it to somebody, we know where everything exists. Not only does that inventory help, we have this asset module that lets you track anything else. So if you want to, and I've seen this countless times, we'll have these massive spreadsheets that are tracking things that can't be inventoried on a network. So if they track their monitors, or maybe projectors or TVs they have in conference rooms, staplers we want to track, you can build our asset module out to be that one-stop repository for all the assets in your environment. It can help you from an accounting perspective. Hey, look, I've got all my assets in here. Have APIs that can talk to systems. So you want to have your purchasing system, say, talk to us and say, when I make a major purchase of, rack servers or whatever, automatically take the inventory that comes in that gets logged in that purchasing system, dump into the asset records inside of Case. That, again, we have a central place to manage all those assets, even if they're outside of the IT realm. It gives that one central place to do that. Also, take those assets and then start cross-referencing them to other assets. So I have a lot of customers that have done kind of room inventory, if you will. So if they have a classroom, they'll set up a classroom as an asset, and they'll align all the devices in that classroom to that classroom. So somebody can come up and say, hey, what's supposed to be in classroom A? They click on classroom A on our interface and see all the assigned assets to that. So it's a very powerful open-ended architecture that we have that allows you to make sure that you know where everything is, you have control over it, a mobile application that can interface with it. So if you are doing that audit and you say, hey, I've got to do my yearly audit of everything we have, we can mobile application around to our offices, scan barcodes, making sure that the assets are where they're supposed to be in the environment.
You mentioned barcodes. Tell a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so with one of the current releases that we just released probably late last year, we have the barcode scanning capability. So we can go through and add barcodes. We have a traditional Dell barcode, since we were part of Dell for so many years. That's already built in, but you can build in your own barcodes. So if you have that corporate asset tag that you've already got a barcoding system for, and you just slapped on your corporate asset tag with a barcode, we can take those and scan those in, attach them to the assets. So now we can start tracking our assets by just scanning barcode from the mobile app, bring it up if we have to reassign it to someone or reassign it to a different location. We simply do that in the mobile application without even needing to come in to the management console.
One thing that we didn't mention during inventory, and I mean just in general, one of the struggles of management, what remote users?
Users are always fun, right? Because you never know if they're going to attach to your network. You don't know when they're going to attach to the network, if they would at all. So we can help manage those remote users. Traditionally, we do that kind of with a firewall rule, right? So we'll register the Case appliance as a public DNS name for that organization. That way, when you're outside and you're sitting at Starbucks and you don't want to rip your VPN, if you're on the internet, it knows how to go back, talk to your server, and then we can manage that device regardless of whether they're inside the network or outside the network. Very simple way to make sure that you don't rely on that VPN for everything. We're not based on Active Directory, so it won't force you to do things by GPO. So I think it makes it a very nice way to take that internal network requirement out of the equation and be able to manage those devices on or off network.
That's great. One thing that caught my ear there, you mentioned that doesn't have to be tied to a domain. So that sounds like it's got some applications, in retail spaces where PCI requirements are starting to require people to keep their point of sale systems off the rest of the domain, sitting on their own little work group. So it sounds like we could manage those too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's definitely one of the key selling points that we see is that we're not really married to the domain. Sure, we can use the the features in a domain, we can use Active Directory for authentication and letting your users come in, give them permissions, grouping machines, grouping users. We can do all that, so we can utilize that, but I'm not tied to it. I'm not married to it. It's not a requirement. So I think that makes us very robust to be able to do both.
Awesome. And let's talk about the users a little more. One of the key drivers in driving down cost of ownership for endpoint management is taking things away from the staff and empowering the users to be able to do things on their own. What does Case have that can help us with that?
Yeah, there's a couple of components inside of Case that really helps us enable those end users to do a little bit more self-service. The thing would be we have a built-in service desk. Right? So we can take this existing service desk, move it into Case if we needed to. We can also build our fresh one. A lot of people just want to start from scratch and build one from the ground up. So we have the ability to add that in. But a nice component of our service desk is that we can have 10 service desks. We can have as many as we want to, and we charge on that. So we have a very simple licensing structure. We're only charging you for the devices managing in the system. Everything else is kind of a parcel of what we do. So you have a service desk for your T group and your facilities group and your HR group, and if they're maintaining your vehicles, your fleet vehicles, you can have a separate service desk for all of those guys built into the one solution that you don't have to pay any extra money for. So we take and we can define processes and workflows. So if hire somebody, I want to know all the things that have to happen when somebody gets hired. HR's got to do some things, and IT got to order computers and mobile devices, and facility have to give them access with a security card. All that stuff can be built into processes, built into our service desk, so that we start tracking all the different phases of things happen when somebody gets hired, somebody gets terminated, whatever processes that you want to define. I've seen a lot of different processes defined over the years with our customers, from purchase request to security request, our stuff. A lot of really cool things that we can do with that. We offer a self-service portal for our end users. Not only can they come in and log a service desk ticket and any one of the queues that you create, but we'll allow them to do some self-service software installation. So if I want to publish things like Adobe Reader and Fox and things that I don't necessarily want to waste my time pushing out to the end user, I say, look, if you want this software, go and get it. They don't need administrative rights to do it, so we can let our agent do it in the background for them. But it comes some power, right? So I need this application to do my job. I really like Firefox, an approved application. I can publish it and let them get that without having to give them any extra access. There's also portal, knowledge base too. So if you want to write knowledge base articles, you publish knowledge base articles for those end users as well.
Wow. So the real point that stood out to me. So you're telling me that Case has a built-in that does any additional over the licensing that give functionality to HR and facilities. So I can use their budget to help pay for Case and really drive the cost of ownership down.
Exactly. Yeah. You have those all the different organizations. They have kind of the same needs, even though they're maybe a little different, right? I still need to track things that happen, requests that come in, and I resolve them. So yeah, absolutely. We have seen quite a few of our customers say, look, HR, if you want to leverage this, I'm going to help make you pay a little bit of this cost, help me defray some of the cost. HR gets what they want without having to spend an arm and a leg, and IT gets to help defray some of the costs of their management tool on top of it.
Wow. That sounds too like there's even components there that with having HR and other departments, base inside the IT-based tool, things like employee onboarding, termination, and long repeatable processes. That's something that we could keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we find a lot of people taking great advantage of that. Once they start figuring out how powerful this tool is and all the stuff that comes with it without any extra cost, you see a lot of things that are kind of outside of the traditional IT stack being put in, because you can, right? So if they want to track all the, one of our customers is a police organization, and their police cars in as assets. They have separate service desk just for police car requests. So if you need an oil change or you got to replace a broken taillight, they have a separate queue for that. All people that are in charge of maintaining those vehicles, they only have access to that queue. Right? They don't get to see HR tickets, T tickets. It's not important to them, and frankly, we don't want them to see that. So we can create those queues and make sure that they have access to the components they need to function with their job, all using the same tool that IT uses on the back end as well.
So let's look real here for a second. That sounds like Case does a lot that will help a lot of different environments. That's a whole lot to configure.
It is. There's a lot to configure, and I think something here is that it's a very simple interface. So I'm not asking people to automatically learn something completely out of the box, right? It's a very simple interface, very familiar interface, tabbed interface that we're all used to. Very logical in how it's set up. There's a lot of training that we provide right out of the gate. So every time you purchase one of our appliances, there's the bundle with it that comes with the appliance. They record the training. We have extra training. We have monthly, probably weekly webinars with our training group that you can go and attend for free. Just ask questions and listen to what they have to say about different topics of the day. So really strive on ease of use. Make sure that it's very simple to deploy. Most of our customers are deploying this solution most of the way within a couple weeks of getting it in-house. So we see that not only is it an easy solution to do, but we see a very quick return on investment with our customers.
Yeah, it's really one of the key drivers for success these days is starting fast. There are a myriad of solutions out there that can do, and the Case does, sounds like, from the industry, the biggest things there are they'll be in the environment for a year and still not configured.
Right. Yeah, and some things have up to 2 years that have been in there, and they say, oh, yeah, we're going to get to that, and nobody ever gets to it because it takes too long, it takes too much resources, there's other fires to fight, and it's just too difficult to do. So I think that's where we see a lot of adoption of Case and why we have such a large and kind of very loyal customer base is the fact that it's just so easy to get done and deployed, and there's a lot of user community around it too. So you can always go out to our user communities on itninja.com and ask questions, and not only do our engineers myself out there, but our developers are out there and other users that are very familiar and been working with it for many, many years. So I think a very, very huge resource for us to have, to all of our customers.
It's great here. I know an active community is, one of the biggest success factors for a product. Sure, it's great to get formal training, but nothing's better than, hearing it from the mouth of somebody who's using it in the trenches every day.
Yeah, I think even us, we learn stuff from our users. Hey, we think about doing that. We stuff all the time that our users are doing that just didn't think of, and we probably figured were possible, but we never did. So I think that it's a really good community for not only our customers, but even for us internally.
Last one here. A lot of people have, as management has been, a necessary evil over the years. Lots of people have built their own homegrown solutions, and I talk to customers that say, I've got all that covered. I'm patching with WSUS. I've got my own service desk that I built with an Access database on the back end. Why is that not a good approach?
Well, a bunch of different tools, and then you have to figure out, well, these tools don't talk to each other. You can't into your service desk Access database and figure out how this device is client on its patches. You can't unless you build a lot of integration in. And I don't think most organizations have the time. They built that tool for a point type solution, right? Here's my service desk, ticket A, I'm going to try it, I'm going to close it, and that's all I'm going to do with it. We have a kind of a Swiss Army knife type of tool where you are pulling in inventory and you have your patch function built in and your service desk function built in, your asset database in the same place. So now I can start seeing how all these things play together instead of having to try to cobble together a bunch of different tools in my mind or in a spreadsheet or somehow figure out how that data correlates to all the other tools that I have.
Great, great. So, and I said that was the last one. I lied. How case into my environment? You know, is this, what's the installation? Like, how does it come in?
Yeah, so we have we really have two different main families of appliances. We have the asset management or systems management appliance. If you've looked at our old material, it would have been called the K1000. We've gone through a rebranding of sorts, so it's called our systems management appliance now. And that's really the Swiss Army knife of what we're talking about here, all the management and inventory and service desk and patch deployments, et cetera. We have another component called the systems deployment appliance. So it's a separate appliance, but still part of our family, and it ties very nicely to the management tool, but that's strictly for our image deployment. And then we have two other kind of flavors, I guess, if you will. If you're strictly looking for asset management, and you don't need the patching because you're happy with what you have, we've seen this countless times with people that have an SCM deployment, and their patching is working fine, their software deployment is working fine. They just want a way to deploy their assets, just manage their assets and control their inventory. We can rip out some of the features of the management appliance, and we call it the asset management appliance, or AMA. Then they can also deliver all of this as a service as well. So if you want from a cloud-based solution that we manage in the cloud and you can just log into your instance and go, you can do that way. We are delivered. If you're doing an MS solution, we would deliver it either in a physical appliance or a virtual appliance. We support VMware and the Hyper-V hypervisors.
You brought me to my next point there. I was going to ask about cloud. There's two camps of IT in cloud. There's the camp that says cloud is just somebody else's computer, and there's the ones that say, no, I'm tired of managing my hardware. I want everything in the cloud. So it's really great to hear that CAS has a cloud option there. So management that can really help take care of everything in the environment, it sounds like. And thank you so much for your time today, Jamie. Now I kind of want to turn it over to Natasha. Any questions you had during that, go ahead and fill them in the Q&A. Natasha had some closing pieces, and then we'll do a Q&A session at the end. Turn it back over to you.
All right. Thanks, Jamie. I think that was great. I mean, you covered so many things that we are experiencing ourselves in supporting clients in doing this. So I'm going to touch on a few of those. Let's flip through to a couple slides here. Sorry, I think those were case slides. But I mentioned in our intro, I was going to talk a little bit about one of our case studies. So here's our engagement approach again. We talked a little bit about that. The thing I do want to touch on here, because you guys talked a lot about kind of all the different outcomes we're seeing of implementing this. What we found really helpful to get to that piece is the assessment/design phase, is talking to our customers about what they're looking for. I mentioned this in my intro, but is clear on what you want. So if you're looking for cost savings, if you're looking for timely and accurate data, like actual live data on whatever it is that you're managing, whether it's the actual hardware, whether it's the software, usage, management, whatever it is that you're looking for, it's important that you know that yourself as the company that's looking at this, and your provider or whoever it is that's helping you, your vendor, to understand what you want to get out of this. That we have found is really, those are drivers to getting to what you want to get to at the end, and then some of the optimization. So what Calance does is we will help you assess, we'll design, we'll implement, we'll maintain this. But in the maintenance piece, what we've also found is clients are not necessarily sure what is all that data they're getting out of CASE. Because one of the things with CASE is it gives you an amazing amount of insight into what you're getting. And Jamie and Brandon talked a little bit about this, but all the different things that you can get. And that can be overwhelming if you've never had access to that type of data. So what it can do is support somebody who's managing this for you, can help you understand what that data is, can look at sort of trilling out the number of reports you want to look at and what type of data you want to look at. So you can actually make some strategic decisions with the data that you've got access to now. That's the beauty of cases. There's so much data in there. It can be overwhelming, but if you take sort of a strategic approach to it, then you are better equipped to slowly move forward in what you're getting out of that and get the most out of your solution. So that's really important here, and that's one of the findings we found. So I'm going to just flip through some of this. So as I mentioned, we talk about assess, trying to understand what you're looking for. In design, being clear on what you're trying to accomplish and what your end goal is. We can talk about reports, metrics, stats. That's all part of the design phase, just trying to understand what you want to get out of that solution that you're looking for. And then the implementation phase is putting that in. We can help you with communications, configuring that and deploying it. I think Amy talks a little bit about sort of the challenges with that. We've definitely helped implement it and then handed it over to some customers. We also have a couple of clients who are with us on the managed services side, and we actually maintain that for them, as I said, on an ongoing basis and sort of work with the management team with the data that comes out in the maintenance side of it. Options I would say to consider in that maintenance phase is working with a vendor, whether it's short-term to understand, like I said, the data that you're getting out of there and then hand it over to you, and taking up an administrator on your own side who manages this on an ongoing basis in the longer term. So the case study, because I think that's one of the things that is interesting part of this is to understand our learnings from this and what we've gotten out of it. It's been incredible, some of the things that we've accomplished from getting that amount of data out of case. Because we worked with a client who had for several years now. They're a manufacturing company headquartered out of Tokyo. We worked with the U.S.-based division. Some of the issues they were having is exactly what Jamie and Brandon talked about in the beginning, which is software licensing, compliance. They were about to hit an audit, and they weren't sure what they had or didn't have. Software patching was secondary to that, but they didn't know how to push that out. They found it really labor-intensive. And just general inventory management. They didn't know, again, what they had, and or it was data information that they had. These were some of the challenges they brought to us and said, what do we do with this? How do we better manage this? So the solution that we talked about was look at a full end-user management strategy, not just for the compliance piece, but understanding everything they have and better managing that so we can strategically think about how to do this. And obviously implementing an end-user management tool. We looked at several solutions. We landed on case. What came out of that was just learnings on, so what software do we have? What versions are we using? And does anybody actually use it? So what our clients have found, and specifically this client especially, was just understanding the thing you stated and use, help them to know when the software and actually, distribute it, was it being used? Using it, was it being used? Is it helpful at all? Because then, sometimes your users will say, oh, I really need this leading edge app, it's out there, and yet they're using it. And that's something you can monitor with case, which is really helpful. But also then updating that on a timely basis in a strategic sort of managed way is what case allows you to do. So we saw a lot of different things come out of this. And ultimately, there are some cost savings here, which is often a driver for a business at the end of the day, let's be real, is you're looking to say something here. You must do that in the short term, and I'm not guaranteeing there are cost savings here, don't get me wrong. But what we have found is that, yes, it takes less time to manage this sort of information. it does take slightly more sophisticated or admin person to manage it, but overall, less labor intensive. You push out software, you push your case. You want to do an upgrade, you put through a case. If you've got, you don't need to go to anybody, you just go to case and you pull a report and what you've got. And you can do that live, you can do that online, you can pull out a paper report if you want, you can export that into Excel. All those things are just, obviously live and timely and helpful to management to make a really good decision on how, when, and what you actually want to get done with, with IT-specific hardware and software. So all information is what's coming to you, and we have found that incredibly helpful. Clients feel that it's been really beneficial. As I said, on the administrative side, this is complicated. As I mentioned right off the bat, hit it again, is that it's the amount of data that you're getting that's a little overwhelming versus how to use it. Case itself, it's not complicated. But that information now, making good management strategic decisions is what's incredibly helpful. So that's part of our learnings from it. And as I mentioned, I don't want to guarantee cost savings, but we have seen that with our clients ultimately long term. Just one has been accuracy of that data, that it's real, it's in the moment. You're not getting that a month old or 2 weeks old. It's real live data, and you know what people are using and not using as well. So with that said, I'm going to hand it back to Brandon. Let's take any questions that he has. We'll be happy to answer anything you've got. I just want to thank everybody for attending today. So, Brandon, back to you.
Natasha, I didn't actually have any more questions come through and Jamie and I covered, we covered a bunch of good questions on there. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to send them into to Natasha, or if you've got an email address that we with registering this, and Jamie and I can get those answered for you. Have some one-on-one conversations.
Thank you, everybody. That concludes our webcast for today. Thank you for